The first program prints half of a Christmas tree using stars. We include the IOStream library at the top, which allows us to print to the terminal using count. Inside the main function, we declare an integer named nRows and set it equal to 6. This variable represents the total number of rows in our tree. Next comes the for loop. The for loop initializes the variable row at 1, runs as long as row is less than or equal to n rows, and increments row by 1 on each iteration. For each row, we use another for loop inside. This inner loop controls the number of stars printed. The loop variable star runs from 0 up to the current row number, so the number of stars increases as the row number increases. After printing the correct number of stars, the program outputs a new line and moves to the next row. The result is a simple but elegant shape that looks like half of a Christmas tree. This program is a great example of nested loops. The outer loop counts the rows, while the inner loop counts the characters within each row. By combining them, we can build patterns on the screen. If you watched the earlier lesson on the rectangle of stars, you'll notice the same principle here. The rectangle used nested loops as well, one for rows and one for columns. The difference is that instead of printing a fixed number of stars in each row, here the number of stars depends on the row number, which gives us a growing tree shape. Just like when we switched from a while loop to a for loop in the number printing exercise, using for loops here makes the logic clear and prevents mistakes such as infinite loops. The for loop has initialization, a condition, and an increment built in. Everything we need to make sure the program stops at exactly 6 rows. The second program generates the first 100 terms of the Fibonacci sequence. Once again, we include IOStream at the top and start with our main function. This time, we declare 3 variables, n1 set to 0, n2 set to 1, and n3, which will hold the sum of the previous 2 terms. We print a short introduction message, followed by the first 2 terms of the sequence, 0 and 1. Next comes our for loop. It starts at 3 and continues until 100, because we already printed the first 2 terms of the sequence. On each pass, the program calculates the next term, n3, as the sum of n1 and n2. It then prints this term. If the loop is at the 100th term, the program prints a dot instead of a semicolon. Otherwise, each number is followed by a semicolon for readability. Finally, the variables n1 and n2 are updated so the sequence continues correctly. This shifting process is what keeps the loop generating fresh values. You can think of it like a relay race, where the baton is passed from one runner to the next, always keeping the sequence moving forward. This program shows another way loops can help us. In the Christmas tree example, loops controlled how many characters appeared in each row. In the Fibonacci example, a single loop controls the repetition of a calculation. Both are examples of how for loops simplify repetition and give us predictable results. The key is understanding how for loops initialize, run, and increment. When used with conditions and variables, they let us build programs that are efficient, flexible, and easy to read. And with that, we finished generating the first 100 Fibonacci numbers, a perfect place to end. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel.